Greetings to all the students. I welcome you all on the YouTube platform of NEXT IAS, and you are watching Daily News Analysis, an initiative where we discuss important articles published in the newspapers and the PIB. With the help of today's video, the topic that we are going to discuss are Supreme Court and Presidential Reference, Supreme Court Cases Pendency, Operation Polo, Gyan Bharatam Mission, and in decorative topic we are going to cover is Hindi Diwas. So now start with the first topic visible over your screen is the Supreme Court and the Presidential Reference. Now you must have heard that in the month of April 2025, the Supreme Court held that the delay by giving or delay in giving is acceptance or assent to the bills passed by the concerned state legislature by the governor and the president is unconstitutional. Owing to it, the president under the Article 143 asked the Supreme Court their clarification regarding the powers of the governor and the president in accepting or rejecting the bill passed by the concerned state legislature. Now, the point is that this Article 143 point was being asked by the Supreme Court, I mean the president from the Supreme Court, because of the reference made because of 2 points. First, the question of setting timelines, and second, what constitute undue delay. So, or why this topic? Because these two have become the tested between the two parts. So, in this context nowadays, the presidential reference under Article 143 and the powers of the governor and the president to give assent to the bills passed by the concerned state legislature has become contentious. So now this topic is about this particular part. So at first we'll learn about the constitutional and the legal dimensions. So the first is for say the advisory jurisdiction with respect to the court, right? Article 143. What it says that the president to refer questions of law or fact which are of public importance to the Supreme Court for their opinion. The opinion is advisory, that means not binding, though it has a great weightage. Under 143, there are two kind of questions that the Supreme Court might be asked, right? But this nature is advisory. And the second part is that there are certain questions where the advice is binding because it is the constitutional part or international treaty, then they must be giving their advisory jurisdiction. Now the point of dispute is that whether such a reference allowed now is a re-litigation of what was decided in the April 2025, or whether the Supreme Court can set timelines in an advisory opinion that may seem to override or modify constitutional practice. This is the question that asks. Second, governor's power versus the elected government. So under the Article 163 and 200, right? And there are certain conventions which say that governors act on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers in most cases. So the bills passed by the state legislature must be assented or withheld, returned under certain conditions. The concept of pocket veto, indefinite withholding, is a controversial point. The pocket veto is so simple that the bill by the president can be stayed with it without assenting it, without rejecting it. Why? Because the constitutional does not give any timeline regarding that in what time the president has to give or assent or reject the bill, right? Now, what the points of dispute in this pocket veto doctrine, that whether governors can indefinitely withhold assent, whether they must act within certain time frames, it balancing the governor's discretion versus the governor's democratic responsibility with respect to the function of the state as well. Third, the judicial review, the check and balance. In Keshwananda Bharti case, the Supreme Court decided that there is a basic structure doctrine. There is a list of the topics that are part of the basic structure nowadays. Now, the courts have repeatedly ruled that the constitutional actions by the governors must conform to the constitutional morality, right? Democratic norms, etc. So, the legislature's will as expressed through laws must not be unduly frustrated by the unelected actors unless constitutionally allowed. Now the point of dispute is that whether the Supreme Court in setting timelines is stepping into state legislative domain, whether this amount to the constitutional amendment by the judicial fight as well. So these three things are in the picture when we are talking regarding the Supreme Court versus the presidential reference issues nowadays, right? Now, the argument of the two sides. So, for say argument of the two sides, the center argument and the state's argument in the Supreme Court. For say the state says the position that the governor is bound by the aid and the advice of the Council of Ministers under the Article 163 of the Constitution of India, and the delay undermine the democratic will. First thing is very important. Second, setting timelines makes for accountability and as soon as possible in the constitutional should imply urgency, right? Third, the idea of allowing a pocket veto is unconstitutional. Fourth, the president's reference should be used to relitigate a matter already decided. Stare decreases should count. And fifth part, that the states nowadays, especially the opposition states quoting that the state should have a remedy, possibly the writ provision under Article 32, when the governors delay unduly. Now, the contrary to it, the central government's point is that under Article 143, the advisory opinion can clarify constitutional doubts even when these are the past rulings, and this is the constitutional law itself, right? Second, the setting timelines may about to judicial legislation or amendment, and the court should be wary of stepping into the executive domain. Why? Because there is a separation of power doctrine, especially mentioned in the Constitution of India. Now, judicial encroachment point has been there itself, right? Judicial, there has been certain issues with respect to the transparency of the judicial working. For say NJC issue was there, collegium system is there, and the judicial encroachment, simple things are there. So now the center says that this point the Supreme Court is trying to impugn into the powers of the governors and the president, which is definitely non-constitutional. That means unconstitutional. Now, third, in many cases the delay is minimal. Now the the central government came up with the idea. The idea is that the center claimed that only 20 of the 17,000 bills were withheld, and those mostly within a month have been passed. So this is just a meager amount, right? And why this point is important? This point is important because there are so many ways for say if it's linked with the Article 2, if it's linked with the Article 3, right? Or Article 368 or Article 50, Article 51 or different parts, right? In those matters, the governors and the president definitely need to have a deep look. A proper understanding of the topic should be there. So the time can be taken, right? So the unduly delay point has been not framed because of this data given by the central government in the code itself. Now, the point that again raised by the the central government is that as soon as possible phrase was consciously preferred over fixed timelines by the Constitutional Assembly. Fixed timelines were rejected. The center says that the fixed timelines was rejected because there must not be any unduly haste in the accepting or rejecting the bill. The president should have its discretionary power. Although as per the constitutional norm, they must go with the voices of the cabinet, the Council of Ministers. But rejecting the bill, returning the bill, these things echoes a lot in the parliamentary democracy. So ultimately, you are snatching the president's power from it. Now, you quoting that the president will have to, for say within 10 days, within 15 days, or for say 30 days, have to either accept the bill or return the bill. But the president of India has been bound with so many of the works to be done. So, proper check and balance will not be able to be done within this, the feasible timeline of 30 days, for 60 days, whatsoever, right? Especially in the case of the diversity and the different topics linked with the India, right? Next, the states cannot invoke fundamental rights under Article 32 to challenge governors because Article 32 is fundamentally for the individual, not for the states. And the governors have some discretionary powers and not mere the postman. So the point is that the governor must work as an agent, not the postman. That means they have their discretionary power to decide that whether the bill is not derelicting the center-state relationship, it is not unconstitutional in its nature. So there are so many things that the governor needs to look upon as well, right? Now, the broader dimension when we are talking regarding this relationship between the presidential election, the first is the federalism and the center-state relationship. Federalism, the governor is being appointed by the president, right? And the state government is being elected. Both are the constitutional powers. So ultimately, we need to look into that there has to be an appropriate power balance between the governor and the state governments to avoid the tensions. Second, democratic legitimacy versus constitutional safeguard. So you are asking to define the extent of governor's discretionary powers to ensure that the laws aligns with the constitutional norms without frustrating the majority of the bill. That means the majority will of the state must be respected, but at the same time, the governor's discretionary power must be respected as well. So you framing the timeline of 3 months for say 90 days is not fruitful as per the part. So a proper balance, a proper check and I would say proper debates should be there. Then afterwards we should think towards this setting up the timelines for the governors and for the president. Now, pocket veto doctrine. This doctrine in itself clarifies the legal implications of indefinitely withholding bills to prevent the unconstitutional actions, right? For say another time the democratic government is trying to become the autocratic one, then the president has the power to stop it with the help of the pocket veto. So it must not be snatched away from the governor and the president part. Practical aspect. The practical aspect is now on what basis you are going to define the timeline. First part. Second part, what is reasonable, how you would define it, right? Third, what if the writ petitions and remedies associated, right? Because the center says that this is mostly linked with the particular one person. Plus, we are talking about that the delays are from the side of the governor. But what if the delays are from the side of the state as well? For say letting issues are there, other aspect associated. So this practical aspect in itself has so many things to discuss, right? And last, the separation of power. The separation of power, the theory states that there must be a respect between the executive, legislature and the judiciary, right? But they must not encroach in their roles. So ultimately, this preventing judicial overreach, maintaining distinct roles between judiciary and the executive branches is one of the most fundamental part of the Constitution of India. So now a judicial encroachment is being visible as stated by the governments, right? So this is this broader dimensions in which we need to look this topic upon. So this is not that as mere topic ke Supreme Court सामने आया and they have restored the guidelines, right? Or they have set the guidelines. Now the possible solutions. Now if there is a problem, that what the solution could be. So the first solution is that automatic assent after a fixed period. For say, we have the example of United States that the president has 10 days to sign or veto a bill. If no action taken and the Congress is in session, the bill automatically becomes law. If Congress adjourns, it becomes a pocket veto. That means endless, right? So the point is that the one solution could be that the governor and the president does not act within a specific number of days. The bill is deemed to have received assent and becomes law. And why this point is so important? Because it has been practiced under the 44th and 42nd Constitution of India as well, right? Now, in France as well, we have the president has 15 days to promulgate a law as well. Now, what is the relevance of this point for the India? That it could prevent pocket veto by the governors. If a bill is not returned or assent to for say within 30 to 9 days window, it should automatically become law. And again, you need to repeat that 42nd and 44th Constitutional Amendment law has ingrained this thing specifically. So we may have this thing as a possible solution. But this timeline is a specific thing that needs to be discussed. That either 90 days is enough 120 days, 150 days or something, or it could be between 90 to 120 days for say 100 days, right? 100 days are more than enough for a country like India, that you can have a proper discussion, you can have certain advice from different kind of the people and the experts, right? So this is the first solution. The second is mandatory time frames for assent or return. For say the constitution explicitly prescribes time frames for executive action. For example, the president must give a sign a bill within 7 to 5 days in Ireland unless referring to the Supreme Court for constitutionality, right? In Germany, the federal president must sign laws promptly but can refuse only on the constitutional grounds. So although we can have this kind of system in India as well, right? And how this concept is relevant for India, how that we could adopt a two-tier system, that assent within 90 days and or return with reasons within 30 days if objective, or again we can say return that base within 60 days if objective. So this actually preserves the constitutional safeguards, and on the other hand it will definitely give impetus to the constitutional accountability and the responsibility as well, right? Third, judicial or parliamentary oversight. Although this is a mere controversial, but this is again a more possible solution, that allow legislature or courts to intervene if assent is delayed, right? For say in South Africa, the president can refer a bill back to the president or to the constitutional court for advice on constitutionality, but cannot delay indefinitely. What the relevance for India? That we can create a mechanism where state assemblies or the Supreme Court can compel a governor to act within a set time frame. Or if not like this, not conscious, that we can start a convention that we may definitely ask with the in a very moral or the constitutional way, in a parliamentary way, that the state legislature will ask the governor again to kindly relook or kindly let us know the points that you have discussed or the step that you are going to take regarding the bill that has been passed from the side of the state government, right? So this process will ultimately bridge between the aspirations of the people and the constitutional safeguard mechanism associated with the powers of president and the governor. Last, clarifying discretion versus obligation. Why? We need to limit the discretionary powers of the unelected heads of the state by defining their role as largely ceremonial. For say in UK, the monarch must give royal assent to bills passed by the parliament. Refusal is unthinkable in modern practice. Why? Because the last refusal in UK was done in 1708, right? And how it's relevant for the India? Because we know that the governors are not political actors, so their role is formal, except when the constitutionally is at stake. So we can define the points specifically, right, with the proper discussion something. And last, constitutional convention and political accountability. So instead of a rigid law, we need to create convention where any delay by the governor is seen as a political misconduct, and this delay should be for say 100 days or 120 days or something like this. If not, then again the state governor or the state legislature, they may have the right to ask that what are you doing, right? For say in New Zealand, for example, the governor general assents immediately. Political norms prevent the misuse. Even in the Canada, the convention ensures that no delay beyond a symbolic rule, right? How is the relevance for India? That it will definitely build strong political norms and the parliamentary cushioning mechanism which discourage the misuse, right? So it will give a weapon to the parliament, to the opposition people, that what is at the stake. Now this is the practice question visible on your screen. Let us know the answer in the comment section. Now start with the second topic. The second topic is that peaking over 88,000 cases, pendency continues to plague Supreme Court. This topic is talking about that now there has been an increased pendency of the cases in Supreme Court. Although pendency is there in the different high courts and the courts as well, but pendency in the Supreme Court in itself is a very big topic. And how do we say that the pendency is being witnessed? Look at this map. I mean, you know the chart that we have over the screen, that pendency up to August 2025. So we have this data of 2025. Right from January, when we have pendency of 82,000 cases. Now, in the month of August, we have 88,000 cases pendent in Supreme Court. It's a serious case. Now, if we look at this data right from 2019 to 2025, then you know in 2019 there were hardly 59,616, right, cases pending in the Supreme Court. Now onwards from 2019 to 2025, when we have the pendency cases of 88,000, that means that the pendency cases in Supreme Court has been enhancing year by year part, and this trend is definitely not good for the working mechanism of the Supreme Court. Now the point is that if the cases are enhancing, that what are those possible factors because of which it is enhancing? The first is that more cases filled than disposed. That means, for say, this is a chart. So the disposal in the year of 2025, right from the month of January to August, right? So the cases disposed by the Supreme Courts are 5,600, and the cases institutionalized, that means the cases registered, are 7,085 in the month of August. In every single month, you say in 7,500, 7,500, 6,300, 6,000, right? So you may witness that the institutional disposal of cases in Supreme Court is even enhancing, and the disposal rate is decreasing. That is why we must show there is a mismatch going on with the number of the cases in the Supreme Court, and this leading to the situation that the cases are on rise. First part. Second, this institutional disposal since August 19, that means again the data of 2019 to 2025, right? We have this data. See, 4,087 case the in 2095, that was institutionalized. In 2025, 7,000 cases. That means in the span of 3 years, 7 years, 3,000 more case has been filled in the Supreme Court. So the more number of cases to be institutionalized in the Supreme Court is in itself is a greater concern to worry. Second point, reduced working days, partially functioning. For say there are certain months when Supreme Court partially functions, right, due to vacations or special causes which slow down the overall thought process of the Supreme Court, right? Second, constitutional bench hearing. There are certain larger cases, for say 3 bench, 7 bench, 9 bench, right, 5 judge bench, tend to take up big constitutional or reference matters which take up the more time to get on the decision, which reducing the capacity for the regular case disposal as well. Now this again, look at this chart. For say this chart talk about, this is 5 judge, this is 5 judge, right? 53, this is about 7 judge, this is about 7 judge, and this is about 9 judge, right? So the point is that the more and more number of the judges are involved in the constitutional hearing as well. Although this is very important to convey as well, is their right, is their duty as well. But this problem leading to a situation that the pending number of cases is rising. Fourth, inclusion of more categories in the court, in the count. For say the pendency in the recent year includes the more kind of matters, for say unregistered matters, the defective matters, which earlier might not have been reflected fully. So this expansion is led to the situation as well. Last, judicial capacity and the resources. Even though there has been measures like increasing judge strength, improving case management systems, but they may not be sufficient or fast enough to keep pace with the new filings of the cases. So delay in the filing vacancies, administrative bottlenecks, they're also likely to play a role as well. Now, why the number of cases, if the number of cases is rising, is a cause to worry? The first is delay in justice. There is a point say that the justice delayed is justice denied, right? So it means longer time, which can be serious hardship, financial, mental, and other things as well. Erosion of access and the deterrent effect. If people believe that it will take too long in the courts to obtain relief, they might be discouraged from seeking legal redress, and this is more visible in our rural areas in India, where the people themselves need to sort the case out within the families or with the help of the unconstitutional courts that are prevalent in different states, right? Third, quality concern. Overburdened courts may not give sufficient time to each case, which potentially affect the depth and the fairness in the judgment, right? Fourth, institutional credibility. High courts being one of the keystones of the democratic justice, the prolonged delays may reduce public confidence in the judiciary. Fifth is the systematic cost. Delay also lead to higher aggregate cost, legal fees, opportunity cost for parties, inefficient costs for the systems. So many things are there which are prevalent, and the after effect, the consequences of the delay in the case itself, and ultimately the common people suffer a lot. And then afterwards there has been so many cases that this delay in justice or something, that there has been said that once the case was put for the reference and the person who was convicted was already died, right? It's been nearby 20 years. So this is the consequences that is visible because of the issue that we have already discussed. Now what could be the possible remedies is increase judicial strength. At this moment there are 34 Supreme Court judges, right? But increasing the number of judges or the benches, especially the smaller benches, to handle more cases concurrently. Second, why this thing important? Because we already have the aspect of Lok Adalat, and the Lok Adalat has worked extensively well, right? Second, better case management, administrative for say adopting a expanding system of categorized bunch streamlined matters. For say we need to prioritize the urgent matters, right? We need to streamline the cases which are of equivalent, right, rather than numbering them one by one or another part. Plus better scheduling, ensuring that vacations or engagement of the judges or on non-disposal duties are balanced against the case disposal workload, which ensure the fewer interruptions. Another, innovations in the court procedure, how we should be useful for more technological aspect. For say there must be e-filing should be there, virtual hearing must be there, simplifying or digitizing the process. We should reduce the formalities where possible, perhaps alternate dispute resolution for certain matters, the point that we have just discussed, right? Another, limiting or rationalizing filings filter mechanism. We need to ensure that only matters that truly require Supreme Court interventions to be filled. A better preliminary screening to weed out the frivolous or the peripheral petitions which ameliorate, duplicate and overlapping petitions would be one panacea as well. Prioritizing disposal of old and priority cases. Again, we need to focus on working or sort out the old cases or the priority cases as well, right? So handing down directions that the cases pending more than certain period are given priority will be one of the major advantage and the panacea. And last, legislative policy interventions. For say we can frame a particular law or rule for say which mandate timelines or maximum tolerable delay, which will enhance funding support for judicial infrastructure, right? But these are those possible reasons with which we can definitely bring down the pendency of the cases in the Supreme Court. Now this is the practice question visible over your screen. Do practices and let us know the answer in the chat box. And again, this is a mains oriented question because this topic is so important. So I have tried to put one mains oriented question as well. Practices and try to reach out to us if you need any help regarding writing how to write this answer. Now the third topic is why Operation Polo was launched to take over Hyderabad. The point is that on 13th of September there was a mark of Operation Polo. The anniversary was there. Now the point is that we know that Sardar Patel has famously said that independent Hyderabad would be a cancer in the belly of the India. Now before we exactly talk about that how this exactly Hyderabad was annexed into the India, we need to understand that why Sardar Patel has said that independent Hyderabad would be a cancer in the belly of India. So the first part with respect to the geographical vulnerability, right? So for say there was a thing regarding from the side of Sardar Patel that Hyderabad was a landlocked state. And if a landlocked state within the India will become independent or will remain independent, then it will definitely be detrimental to the India's sovereignty, and it will definitely work against the two types. First, it will definitely diminish or reduce the internal communication between the states and the center versus state. First thing, and the second, it will definitely weaken India's internal unity as well. First part. The second part is communal tension were there, right? We know that the Nizam of Hyderabad, Mir Osman Ali Khan, right? He was running because of the autocratic regime over the population of one Hindu groups, and there was a say that they were fueling the communal tensions within the states, I mean between the two communities. So if communal tensions will be there, it will definitely be detrimental against the India's secular fabric in near future, and definitely the country which just got the independent, it is definitely not good for the country to have this kind of communal tension, because it will definitely aggravate in other states as well. Third, you know that the Mir Osman Ali Khan was even trying to reach to the UN. Why? Because he was thinking that neither I want to become the part of the Pakistan or nor the India, but rather they wanted to become an independent country. That means they will seek their own currency, they will have their own army or different thing associated. Now the point is, if this thing will remain for share, so for say in near future there will be possibility that certain foreign people will definitely have their footholds with the help of this Hyderabad inside the India's territory, which is definitely not fruitful for India's strategic security and the internal security concern. And this Hyderabad was sophisticated with respect to the economical aspect as well. The iron, raw or other things was there, the minerals within the Hyderabad, which was definitely needed for India's prosperity. And again, if it will be there, it will definitely fuel the Hyderabad's demand to remain independent, and perhaps in near future they may, because of the back of different countries, they will become the independent in the UN itself, right? And last as well, if somehow this will become independent, I mean Hyderabad will become independent, then after definitely it will have an after effect upon the other princely states for say Junagadh, Travancore, Kashmir as well. So ultimately, with the idea of one nation, one people, this became the cancer in the belly of India in the view of Sardar Patel. Now, this has been the reason. Now, the point is, what has been the history regarding and how it got annexed into the part of India. The first is, at independence, more than 500 princely states were given an option to accede to India, Pakistan or remain independent. Hyderabad, one of the largest, richest and strategic geography, right? Now, internal agitation. There was significant internal opposition to the Nizam, mainly among Hindu peasant tenants, linguistic groups, political movements for the Andhra Mahasabha, CPI, who objected to the feudal exploitation, communal bias and suppression by the Rajakas. Rajakas was the army that the Nizam had. The communal and the religious overtone, the point we have thus the mention, right? It will definitely be detrimental to the secular fabric of the India. Now, geopolitical and the security concern. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel saw independent Hyderabad as a potential threat to the territorial integrity, right? That was against the point. Now, the constitutional and the legal dimension at the moment, right? For say, Hyderabad refused accession if the Indian government claimed both political and constitutional grounds to ensure accession, or else bring Hyderabad within Indian Union by force or by pressure. How it exactly led to law, we need to understand that there were certain societal dimensions as well that led to the increment of the Hyderabad. For say, Hyderabad was not monolithic. Significant Telugu, Marathi, Kannada speaking populations and various communal and caste tensions, identities, religious differences, and each group has their own aspirations and grievances associated. Second, the presence of large feudal landlords, oppressive agrarian relaxations, exploitative tenancy systems, peasants, and the tenants had long, grievances, right? Plus criminal violence. We have just talked this point as well, that the Rajakars committed acts of violence, operations against the majority of the people, right? And there was a widespread fear and insecurity among the population regarding their future. Now the governance and the military aspects, that Indian Army forces with 2 infantry brigades, armored brigades, supplementary forces. Also, Air Force used bombing raids. The Rajakars and the Hyderabad State Army were no match in terms of the modern organization, discipline, the capacity, and they will say that just within the 5 days, they surrendered before the government of India and integrated as one of the part of the government of India, right? And administrative after annexation. After occupation, a military administration was in place under Mr. N. Chaudhary, who was the Major Judge General who led this operation. And then in 1949, unelected civilian administration was there, followed by the elected government in 1952, right? So the transition to democratic governance was phased out like this. Now the long-term impact. What was the impact of the annexation of the Hyderabad into the India? First is political integration. It strengthened India's territorial and political unity of the country. First. Second, state reorganization. The linguistic state reorganization led to the bifurcation of the Hyderabad state. First, Telugu-speaking states merged into the Andhra, and the Kannada parts was merged into the Mysore, which is now Karnataka. The Marathi-speaking parts in the Bombay state, the later Maharashtra, right? So this somehow addressed certain linguistic identity demands as well. Fourth, the legacy of the communal tension. Some communal tension rooted in the Rajakar period in the field of the oppression of Muslims remained part of the local history memory. Precedent for the police action. This set a precedent for how India would deal with princely states not exceeding or resisting integration. Example like Junagadh and Kashmir, right? Fifth, governance issue. Once Hyderabad became part of India, the governance reforms, the land reforms, abolition of Jagadari, feudal landlord system, integrating law and order, and administrative under the Indian rule will be undertaken thoroughly as well. And ethnic and linguistic state identity. For say, after reorganization, identity politics along with the linguistic lines became formalized, and this addressed some demands, but local resentment lingered in some quarters. This was visible in JPV movement as well. Now, after this integration, we need to understand that what is the role of Sardar Patel in the princely integration. So the first is that he became the Deputy Prime Minister and the Home Minister, right? And took charge as the State Minister with VP Menon as his key aide, right? Now, during his time, there was a fear of balkanization of the Indian states, and there were certain other political and the actional factors which was forcing the balkanization to take place in India at this moment, right? So, what strategy did he accept it? First was the political strategy. Patel combined pragmatism, diplomacy, and the firmness. For say, he offered rulers privileges and privy purses to safeguard their dignity, emphasized practical impossibility of independence in the democratic India, used carrot and stick approach, first persuasion, then readiness for the force if it needed. We have heard this thing in the case of Hyderabad. Second, the instrument of integration. The Patel and the Menon devised the instruments of integration by which states ceded powers over defense, foreign affairs and communications to the union, and later many were merged into administrative unions to streamline the governance. Fourth, dealing with the different types of states. Why? Because the dealing of the different states was, integration of different states with respect to the Indian states was different. For say, there were certain peaceful accessions. For say, Baroda, Bikaner, Gwalior, they signed accessions quickly, right? Now understand, this point is very important for your prelims exam as well. Now, there were certain problematic states as well. For say, Junagadh, there was a small state with Muslim ruler and the Hindi majority. The Nawab opted out for Pakistan despite geographical impracticality. But Patel responded with the economic blockade and people's movement, and Nawab fled and there was a plebiscite to be conducted in February 1948 and Junagadh merged with the India. Now for the prelims question, the state which added to the India with the help of the plebiscite was Junagadh. Second, Hyderabad, we already have discussed this point. Kashmir, Maharaja Hari Singh delayed the accession. When Pakistani-backed tribal raiders invaded, the Maharaja sought Indian help. Though Patel favored swift action, but there were certain points in the minds of our Prime Minister that charged due to Kashmir's internal dimensions. Right? Travancore, Bhopal and the Jodhpur, they initially hesitant, but Patel persuaded them through diplomatic negotiations and the personal outreach. So there was so many different things because of which Patel integrated the India or created a union of states. So Patel did not stop at the accession. He pushed for further merger and reorganization. For say, he created a United States of Saurashtra, Patiala and East Punjab States Union and other states unions, which laid the foundation for State Reorganization Commission 1956. This exact point of integration, the series led by the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, gave him the title of Bismarck of India, and this is exactly what we have in 2025, right? So that was the near significance of Sardar Patel in Indian political and administrative history. Now this is the practice question visible over your screen. Let us know the answer in the comment box. Now the fourth topic, that Union Minister and Minister of Cooperation, Mr. Amit Shah, expressed happiness of the first international conference of Gyan Bharatam Mission being organized in New Delhi. Now this topic is important with respect to the arts and culture part. Now we need to understand a little bit aspect for say India's civilizational aspect. If I say that India's civilizational wealth has always attracted so many of the scholars from the other kind of the world area. Gurukuls were there who used to nurture the students. Then afterwards we have so much of sophisticated universities for say Ashoka, Nalanda, Takshashila or say which ignited or which propelled the ignited minds and made them a brilliant scholars. And the repository of the manuscripts were there in different languages. It was so much civilization wealth we had in our past that in the 17th BC when Huinsang came, he took around more than hundreds of the manuscripts with him to the China. Even afterwards, the Nawab, the Nawab of Awadh, right? He gave the manuscript of the Pashanama to the King George III, which is at this moment, right, is one of the finest manuscripts in the Britain. So the point is that the manuscripts has been already being there as the finest part of India's rich civilizational knowledge part as well. Now the point is that the government of India at this moment is trying to safeguard the manuscripts that we have. Why? Because they are the rich sources of preserving our arts and culture, our traditional knowledges, our customs, the points that we have already there, the knowledge, wisdoms, different philosophies, so on, which can definitely guide India for the other countries as well or in the near future as well. And after, especially with the help of the Buddhism and the yoga diplomatic outreach that we have nowadays, this preservation of manuscripts is immensely important for enlarging India's soft power diplomacy in near future. Right? Now, the point is, there is a quotation which comes to our mind regarding the manuscript, that the manuscripts are not merely archival records but living repositories of civilization knowledge that must be actively studied, interpreted and shared. Now the point is, what is manuscript? This is a handwritten composition on paper, bark, palm leaf, etc. with a dating or the time for 75 years. मतलब 75 ईयर से ज्यादा अगर कोई पार्ट है तभी हम उसको मनुस्क्रिप्ट बोलते हैं, राइट। नाउ फॉर से वी हैव सो मेनी ऑफ द एग्जांपल्स ऑफ manuscripts, right, and printed versions, lithographs, etc. are not the manuscripts. Mind this thing, right? So this is this particular part. Now the point is, after this manuscript, what is the Gyan Bharatam Mission, right? So under the UN budget 2025-26, right, our Prime Minister foresighted that to bring India's knowledge, science, research compiled in manuscripts, brings back Tamarpatra, stone inscriptions, and records to the new generation, aimed at surveying, documenting, and conserving India's vast manuscript heritage. The objective of this Gyan Bharatam mission was to conserve 1 crore manuscript housed in academic institutions, museums, libraries, and the private collections. Now, this is especially important with respect to the prelims exam, right? This is mission is for period 2004-2031 with the outlay of 482 crores, right? So this is for your prelims specific aspect. Do have it. Now, the vision of Gyan Bharatam mission. There are 3 phases that we are going to first have implemented it. In first phase, the establishment of institutional framework, initiation of pilot digitization projects, and rollout of training programs to build the core capacity. In the second stage, optimization of the national digital repository and deployment of advanced technology platform to expand the access. And the third part, we are scaling up the outreach initiative, including exhibitions, cultural programs, and integrated the repository with national and the international archives, so that we can match the similarity and can enforce that this is the specific understanding that we have given to the word itself, right? Now, the objectives of the Gyan Bharat mission. It has a framework to revive India's manuscript legacy by combining preservation, digitization, scholarship, and the global accessibility. Now, the point is, before we jump into this thing, there are certain pathways of manuscript revival that we used to practice. The first is capacity building and training. We need to train the experts in manuscripts studies and the conservation, right? Second, technological development. A more specific use of technological advances to preserve it in a better mode. For say, we may use the use of NFT if the government permits for the future aspect as well. The digitization and the repository creation for global accessibility, this is important point. Research, translation, and publication. The revival of the manuscripts could only be done with the help of research and the multilingual translations. Why this is? Because we have so many of the manuscripts, but majority we have said that it is around 75% we have in the Sanskrit languages, and 25% we have in other different languages, for say Telugu, Kannada, or other languages, right? Next, identification and the documentation. We need to have a systematic identification and documentation of the ancient manuscripts, right? And conservation and the restoration efforts. We need to use or preserve the manuscripts with scientific and the traditional methods as well. Now, if we will be able to conserve it thoroughly, or be able to have 1 crore manuscripts in the Gyan Bharatam mission, then what could be the expected outcome? The first outcome will be this cultural diplomacy. This is a very important point. The positioning manuscripts as tool of India's cultural outreach and global soft power reach. Academic integration. We can have the recommendations of the curriculum development, research engagement, and training initiatives so far further. Institutional linkages. It will strengthen national and global collaboration for the research and the capacity building. Long-term activities and the partnership. Initiation of sustained programs and knowledge collaborations across the institutions. And now this is a very specific information with respect to your prelims exam, that New Delhi Declaration, adoption of a common character of preservation and promotion of the manuscript heritage is important. Now the point is that after so many things, there are certain challenges associated with the Gyan Bharatam mission. The first challenge is identification issues. For say, it has been so much of the scattered part itself, which limits the access. Why limits the access? Because the people who have them do not know its importance. So ultimately they have this kind of mindset that why would I give it to you, right? So plus second, scattered modes are there. It has been preserved in different temples, mosques, or different parts, right? So in a scattered part, having them in one part is one of the greatest challenge. Second, environmental challenge. Why? Because we know that India's hot and humid climate and is the first part. On second hand, mostly they are on the palm leaf or the the 100 years old papers or something like that. That was especially the handmade papers. So there are concern that they may get damaged because of the India's humid and the hot nature. Plus, for say there are certain environmental concerns as well. For say if flood took place, tsunami took place, or something like this, the landslide could took place. It may definitely be detrimental for the the accessing to the manuscript. Plus, infrastructural limitations. How the infrastructure limitations? We know at this moment कि AI में आप text to generate कर सकते हो. For say there is a program that you, with the help of the AI at this moment, you can easily generate the text from the pictures or something. But there is a concern with respect to the different languages. First thing. Second thing, this process of AI is still at its nascent stage. Now English तो ढंग से कर नहीं पा रहे हैं. Now imagine the case of the Assamese, Bodo, Manipuri, Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, or different languages. It is a very tedious task and a far-sighted task as well, right? So this is the limited, the infrastructure limitations as well. Plus digitization barriers, right? This is the point that we just discussed. Cultural resistance. Again, the custodians of the manuscripts will definitely need to custody, contain those all things. We may link this thing as for say Ayurveda, right? We may link with this thing aspect for the different herbal medicine or something. Although there has been so much of the advancement took place, but still at this moment, the people who have them are so many of the worry with respect to the giving to up. Digitization barriers, there are, if certain people are knowledgeable and they do have this kind of access to the manuscripts, there are concerns regarding the IPR or other issues as well. So those are the challenges with respect to the manuscript conservation in India. Now this is the practice question visible on your screen, right? Do practices and let us know the answer in the comment box. Now let's discuss today's recorded topic, which is the Hindi Diwas, right? Which is visible over your screen, that Union Home Minister Amit Shah's appeal on Hindi Diwas, respect all Indian languages. Now the point is that on 14th of September, right, we observe the Hindi Diwas. Why? Because when we commemorate the day, we commemorate the day when the Constituent Assembly in India at the time in 1949-1950 accepted Hindi as a official language. Mind this thing, this is the official language. Official language, but not a national language, right? There were certain concerns regarding, among the members in the Constituent Assembly. So why not national language? Because if we quote it as a national language, it would bring exclusivity or the nationalistic aspect. But when we say the official language, it is more about the administrative aspect and the working style only, right? Now why it mentioned as the official language? Because there was so many of the views from the side of different people that they, or I would say the non-Hindi belt people were asking that Hindi should not be promoted, right? So the argument and the other issues were there at the moment. And this point is that what debates did the Constituent Assembly see on the adoption of the Hindi, Sanskrit as official languages, and what was the Manushi Iyengar formula? This Manushi Iyengar formula laid the foundation of introduction of the Hindi as the official part, right? So what was the Manushi Iyengar formula? First, they recognize Hindi as recognize Hindi as official language, and that too Hindi in Devanagari script, right? Second, the use of English, for say after the commencement of the constitution for coming 15 years, they promoted this Manushi Iyengar formula, promoted the continued use of English along with the Hindi, right? And they even said that after the 15 years, the President of India may formulate a language commission to review the process and to give recommendations regarding the language. Third, what it said that the numerals should be of the international norms. This is 1, 2, 3, right? Not in the Hindi Devanagari part, जहाँ पे हम लोग 1, 2, 3 something करके लिखते हैं, right? Plus as well, Manushi Iyengar formula tried to balance the unity and the integrity of the India. How? They said they even sought to recognize Hindi as a symbol of Indian identity and unity. Now, understand this point is very important, that the Manushi Iyengar formula, which laid the foundation of the Hindi, accepted the Hindi as a symbol of national identity and the unity as well, right? Now, all this thing led to the incorporation of Article 343 in the Constitution, which quotes regarding the official language of the government right. So this Manushi Iyengar formula must be understood and to be read in this perspective. Now coming forward, we need to understand why this is a historical debate took place regarding the part 4. Say, during the British rule, English was the language of administration, law, higher education, etc. But after independence, there was a widespread desire to break ties with the cultural colonial dominance. So language was the part of that as well, right? So the majority of the people was against the use of English, but at the same time, many people, especially in the non-Hindi, the southern Hindi part, the Urdu speaking, became accustomed to be benefited from the English. So completely dropping English at the moment was definitely detrimental for the welfare of those major chunk of the people of India as well, right? Second, the linguistic diversity. India has dozens of major languages and hundreds of the dialects. Many regions have strong linguistic identity for say Tamil, Telugu, Bengali, Maratha, etc. etc. Even in the northern states, northeastern states, we have different parts of Bodo language, Manipuri, Assamese, or some other parts, right? Now, there were strong feelings about the cultural identity tied to the language. In many non-Hindi speaking ties, people feared that making Hindi the de facto national standard would marginalize the native languages. Third, pre-independence language politics. What? That there was debates in the Indian National Congress and other forums about what should be the national unifying language. Hindustani was sometimes proposed as a more inclusive medium that was a blend of Hindustani, Urdu and the Hindi. But for the Gandhi had made statement about Hindustani being a possibility. Now fourth part, a need for a unifier versus protection of diversity. The Constituent Assembly had to balance the need for a common administrative medium as the rights and the aspirations of the linguistic minorities in India, right? ऐसा ना हो कि उनके मन के ऐसी भावना आ जाए कि भाई हम तो बिल्कुल ही पीछे जा रहे हैं. Now, what are the constitutions and the legal dimensions with respect to the Hindi as a language? For say 43, we already have discussed Hindi is the Devanagi language, use of 15 years of English. Parliament passed the Official Language Act 1963, which allowed continuous use of English beyond 1965, so long as this need to be again very specific information, right? Now, the concept of national language and the official language, and I quoted this thing specifically that Constitution did not design any language as national language. There was no article saying that X is India's national language. Rather, the debate in the assembly shows that member wanted only the official languages to be signed only, right? And why this distinction matter? Because official relate to the government administration, but the national is more symbolic, identity, emotional, unifying base. If you label one language as the national part, that means that you are excluding the other from the part of the nation. The Munshi-Aiyingar formula we just quoted, the acts and the amendments we just quoted. Now, the political dimensions of this Hindi debate that was there. Now, the regional politics. There were states like Tamil Nadu who strongly opposed the Hindi imposition. और आज भी हम लोग ये चीज देखते हैं. It is still visible in the Tamil Nadu politics. Language politics, there remain sensitive. Anti-Hindi agitations were already happened and would happen again. So, any move favoring Hindi must be cautious at the moment, right? Plus, party politics and the leaders. Different leaders has differing views regarding depending on their region, ideology, religious community or something. For instance, there are certain people from the Hindi and Urdu speaking areas. For those sympathetic to Sanskrit and Hindu culture revival, they press for the Hindi or for the Sanskrit. For example, there was one person called R.V. Dhulekar, right? R.V. Dhulekar in the Constituent Assembly pitched a major revival for the Sanskrit in the Sanskrit as the language, right? Plus, national identity and singleness. The language question was not just administrative. It has symbolic state that what is the Indian identity, right? It is linked with the Sanskrit Hindi culture, with the identity of the Hindus or the people of India and the civilizational linkage, right? So, it is not just a one single language part. It is linked with the national identity and the symbols as well. Plus, post-constitutional politics. Implementation of the national policy became part of state-centered relationship. There is a pressure from states at different parts, right? And you know that Andhra Pradesh become a state. It was the first state became state on the base of the language only. So we have so many of the political aspect associated. Now the societal and the cultural impact with respect to this part, that is linguistic identity and the inequality. Language is centered to identity. When a dominant language is elevated, the speakers of the other languages may feel marginalized. Again, this will lead to the economic negative impact upon the different families who are linked with the non-Hindi background, right? Why? Because if it is being promoted, that the entire government machinery will be promoting the Hindi only, and the other different dialects and the languages will be left behind, right? So, yes, point is access to government job, education, legal service will be helpful for those people only, right? Education. Students in non-Hindi states might have to learn both Hindi and the English. So, the quality of the language education, the availability of the teachers, the textbooks, the resources, they will matter a lot. And it will definitely have a burden on the exchequer. The cost will be implemented, right? Social integration and the fragmentation. It is the language which help in the integration, interstate communication and the mobility as well, right? But forced and perceived forced linguistic homogenization can breed resistant regionalism or other parts. Now the cultural preservation. Non-Hindi language may lose luster among younger generation if Hindi or English dominate in media, government and prestige. You can visible this thing specifically as that there is a more demand in India for the English schools rather than the Hindi schools, right? और हम देख रहे हैं हमारे भारत के अंदर गुरुकुल्स की क्या इस समय हालत हो चुकी है, that only a very small chunk of the people used to live and studied in the Gurukul part only, right? So this is the language that matters the most. This is the language that defines the future of the one country. This is a language which defines the minds of the youngs as well, right? So this thing is cultural preservation part is excessively important. Now the economic and the governance implication with respect to the Hindi. For say administrative efficiency and cost, we already have discussed this thing. Economic mobility. The knowledge of official working language matters for the jobs in the central services, higher education, and the judiciary, right? And at the moment, English remains very crucial for the global trade and science technology. So completely dropping English might have hurt the competitiveness of the India and to the access to the different technological advancement, right? इस बात को आप ऐसे भी समझ सकते हैं कि जब यूपीएससी ने 2013 या 2014 times when we have there was a great debate between the English and the Hindi, ऐसा बोला जाता था कि हिंदी का जो ट्रांसलेशन आता था वो इतना टफ हुआ करता था सीसेट के अंदर that it first is was tough and the meaning was entirely changed, that majority of the Hindi based students got used to fail in the CSAT, right? So we can look at this thing with respect of the this angle as well. Now the resource allocation, we need to produce the textbooks, hiring trained teachers, translating legal documents, then again the cost will be there. Last, governance and the federal relationship. For say the central government must balance with the state governments. So the language policy can become a flashpoint between the center and the state relationship, right? So ultimately the point is that the policies has to be more flexible, that definitely have the aspirations and the feelings and the emotions of the people of different states. Now with respect to the Hindi part, there was one ethical concern as well. That is it fair to require citizens whose mother tongue is non-Hindi to learn and perform in a language not to their origin? How much burden is acceptable? Imagine the person got born in the non-Hindi part और आप उससे छोटे बोलते हैं that you need to speak in Sanskrit, English or in Urdu or different languages to become the participant in the one essay quiz. That means वो बच्चा तो लगातार ही बाहर हो गया, right? This is the point. Rights and the inclusivity. This is the rights of one's own language in education, course, official dealings can be seen part of the dignity and the identity. And perhaps we have witnessed that UPSC has given a chance for the interview candidate to speak in either Hindi or English, right? Or in their own languages. Imposition versus choice. Now the whether a language policy becomes coercive, that means imposing Hindi for say parts, or allow the choices, or there must be a gradual transition. This definitely affects the ethical legitimacy of a language to become a national language, right? Now the language conflicts. In India, there has been a history of the language conflicts. Just a look at regarding what the language history of what the conflicts were there and the demands in India. First is Constituent Assembly debates. वो हम लोगों ने बैठ के ये बात लगातार कर ही ली है. For say Frank Anthony, he was promoting the English part. T.T. Krishnamachari, he was promoting the Telugu part. So Sanskrit was proposed as a symbolic ancient alternative as well. Post-independence, we have that 15-year deadline for English triggers fears in the Tamil Nadu and other non-Hindi states, led to the agitation to take place, based on which official language act had to be passed. Anti-Hindi agitations in Tamil Nadu turned violent. DMK built its own political base on this resisting Hindi imposition only, right? The regional demands. Tamil Nadu is the epicenter of anti-Hindi sentiments. It demands for the two language formula, that means mother tongue plus the English, rather than the three formula which adds Hindi as well. तो ये जो टू लैंग्वेज फॉर्मूला है और जो थ्री लैंग्वेज फॉर्मूला है, इसका भी हमारे देश के अंदर एक बहुत बड़ा इतिहास है और एक बहुत बड़ी जद्दोजहद है, राइट? ईस्टर्न इंडिया, फॉर से वेस्ट बंगाल, उड़ीसा एंड नॉर्थ ईस्ट, there is a strong pride in the regional languages nowadays, Bengali and Assamese, right? But अगर आप नॉर्थ ईस्ट की तरफ जाओगे, so with my मेरा ऐसा उदाहरण रहा है कि अरुणाचल के अंदर the people loves Hindi songs, so the promotion of Hindi as the cultural part has been prevailed in the northeast eastern part, especially in the Arunachal. But Assam, Bengali, there has been a strong pride with respect to their language, right? Second, northeastern central part, majority of the Hindi speaking generally sees as a natural official language as well, and that is the reason there has been debate for including expanding Hindi use in UPSC, judicial or different exams, right? Northeast India, languages like Manipuri, Bodo, Khalis, Mizo, other demand protection and inclusion in the 8th schedule of the constitution. There has been again the resistance to Hindi English dominance fear to the cultural origin of the particular northeastern state. So we witness that चाहे हम नॉर्थ की बात करें, नॉर्थ ईस्ट इंडिया की बात करें, ईस्टर्न इंडिया की बात करें, चाहे साउदर्न इंडिया की बात करें, so there has been a growing concern regarding the language or what language should be the use of national language, the barrier, the teaching and the other thing associated, and it is based on the regional aspirations and the language pride as well. Now the current status of the Hindi. आज की तारीख में हिंदी की स्थिति क्या है? अगर हम हिंदी दिवस को साक्ष्य मान के बात करते हैं तो 2011 का सेंसस कहता है कि 44% इंडियंस हिंदी बोलते हैं. 2021 का सेंसस या मोर देन 50% ऑफ द इंडियंस डू नॉट स्पीक हिंदी एज द मदर टंग. हिंदी आज की तारीख में इज द थर्ड लार्जेस्ट ऑफ द स्पीकर्स बट नॉट इन अ मेजॉरिटी लैंग्वेज. भारत के अंदर सबसे ज्यादा बोली जाने वाली जो लैंग्वेज है वो बंगाली है. हिंदी इज द ऑफिशियल लैंग्वेज ऑफ द यूनियन, right? English continues indefinitely for administration, judicial, higher education, the parliament, the UPSC exams, the banks exam, others say, right? Now, Hindi plus English are used as the link languages between union and the states. In the 8th schedule, there has been a constitution of around 22 languages enshrined in the constitution, which engulfs languages from the southern states and the northeastern state as well. हम कर क्या रहे हैं? We are just trying to bridge the gap between the languages with the help of the 8th schedule of the constitution. Judiciary of the parliament, आज भी सुप्रीम कोर्ट के अंदर सारा काम और हाई कोर्ट के अंदर काम सिर्फ और सिर्फ इंग्लिश में ही होता है, and it was mentioned in the constitution specifically, right? हाई कोर्ट्स largely English with limited regional language use, वो कहीं कहीं बैठ के प्रमोट होता है, लगातार यूज नहीं होता है. नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी के अंदर भी there has been a push for mother tongue regional languages, medium of instruction till class 5. Now again NEP push for the 3 language formula. What is the 3 language formula? This is कि अगर आप हिंदी स्टेट के हैं तो हिंदी प्लस इंग्लिश प्लस रीजनल लैंग्वेज. दैट मीन्स फर्स्ट आप हिंदी पढ़ेंगे, देन आप इंग्लिश, और अगर नॉन हिंदी अगर आपको पढ़नी है तो. बट इफ यू आर अ नॉन हिंदी स्टेट then class 5th तक you have to study till regional knowledge only. Then afterwards Hindi and then afterwards English. So this has been incorporated in the NEP 2020. Let's look what the future will look like part. और आज की तारीख का जो recent development है, 2022 का एक पार्लियामेंट्री पैनल था, श्री अमित शाह जी का प्रपोजल था that he recommended Hindi should gradually replace English in union government communications and in higher educations, right? और हम देखते हैं शायद अभी एक किसी IIT ने अपनी पूरी जो इंजीनियरिंग की पढ़ाई है हिंदी के अंदर बैठ के शुरू कर दी गई है, राइट? तो अगर एक IIT शुरू कर रहा है तो दैट मीन्स दैट इन नियर फ्यूचर इट विल बी प्रिवेल फॉर श्योर, राइट? एंड दिस इज ऑल फॉर द पार्ट. सो वी मे से दैट हिंदी टुडे इज द लार्जेस्ट स्पोकन लैंग्वेज ऑफ द इंडिया, द ऑफिशियल लैंग्वेज ऑफ द इंडिया, बट इट इज नॉट द लैंग्वेज, द नेशनल लैंग्वेज, नॉट द सोल लिंक लैंग्वेज. लेकिन आज की तारीख में भी द लैंग्वेज इशू इन इंडिया कंटिन्यूज टू रिफ्लेक्ट इंडियाज कल्चरल डाइवर्सिटी, रीजनल प्राइड, द डेमोक्रेटिक नेगोशिएशंस, द सेंटर स्टेट रिलेशनशिप एंड सो फोर्थ थिंग्स एज वेल, राइट? सो दिस इज द प्रैक्टिस क्वेश्चन visible over your screen. Do try to write this question and try to reach out to us if you need us. I hope that today's DNA topic was fruitful to you and you understood the dimension that we try to incorporate in different topics we try to provide justice with. Keep watching daily news analysis and keep studying at your home. Thank you very much.